Lurker asked if I was ready to go over Seed and Orphe in the 2.3 future meta or Rupture meta. Meta? Wow, meta. And what that means, or rather the question that's being specifically asked, is that how do I feel about Seed going into the upcoming Rupture meta 2.3? So we have been drip fed. We do know about Lucia, we do know about Minato, and we do know about Yidhari. All three of these characters, to my understanding, are all Rupture agents, meaning that a lot of the Rupture agenda is going to be pushed throughout 2.3 and possibly beyond, which at this point, let's talk about it. I think that's fair. Right now, I do believe that's fair. Why do I think it's fair? Because the only Rupture agents that we got were Yixuan, because Jafufu is stunned, but she works for Yixuan, or works with Yixuan, I should say. We can filter Rupture. This is all we have in the entire game. And we have characters that support Yixuan, but not specifically Rupture. Now we do have another character, which is Pan Wu or Pan Yin Wu, that buffs Sheer Force. Now this kind of made us feel like we were going to be able to use Sheer Force outside of Rupture agents, but I do believe they're sticking with their guns and that only Rupture agents will have access to Sheer Force. With that in mind, this is all we have. Yixuan got here in 2.0, right? Started 2.0, we're going into 2.3. That's about 6 characters or so, 6-7 characters that we've had released beyond that point. A lot of the content has been miasma or half and half at the bare minimum. If we go into Outposts or Deadly Assault, I should say. And even before this, we had a couple different Shiyu defenses with miasma as well, right? But if we come over here, we see that the Defiler, does she have miasma-centered stuff? Yes, she does. We come over to Fiend, miasma-centered stuff? Yes, she does. And then Miasma Priest, it's literally in their names. So we're in a miasma focused thing right now. And yeah, there are ways that we can deal with miasma, but for the, I guess the average or casual player, you don't have all of the options to deal with miasma. Even more so, the fact that you had to make a decision at the time of Yixuan's release. You needed to decide between Yixuan or Miyabi. Some players had the ability to get both. Most players already had Miyabi, but you would have had to been playing before 2.0. 2.0 brought in a lot of new, and I mean brand new players. So they had to make a decision between coming in earlier and getting Miyabi or coming in 2.0 and picking up Yixuan. So if they picked up Yixuan, kudos and great for them. If they didn't, because everyone was saying like grow for Miyabi, they don't have anything. No Rupture agent. So we're getting Minato, who's going to be an A rank agent who's Rupture. And I do believe the thing going around right now is that he's going to be free. This is huge. Huge. Even if people were complaining about him not being an S rank, it's better for them that he is an A rank, because now you have a free option on top of, you no longer need Yixuan if you don't want her. You have the option of Yidhari as well. And Lucia coming out being a ether support, which is gonna help out not only Yixuan, but I've seen a little bit of the footage, and we see that Lucia is straight up just helping everybody. She's helping Minato, she's helping Yidhari, and she's helping Yixuan. This is good. So just from a player perspective, going into this full-on 2.3, this Rupture meta, very good stuff. But let's look at where Seed is. And we can extend this a little bit, right? Not even just Seed. We can look at this as attack agents in general. How do we feel about attack right now? The most of our characters in the game that we have DPS wise are going to be the attack agents. We have Zhu Yuan, Sanbi, Ellen, Hugo, Evelyn, Harumasa, Seed, Soldier 11, Nekomata, Anton, Korin, and Billy. A lot of what's going on here and going into the future of this game really does depend on how they're going to treat the attack agents. I think, and I said this in, I want to say 2 of the previous videos that I've put out this week, I did talk about the fact that if you care about attack as a comp, if you want attack to be good for yourself, or like you want to further strengthen your teams that happen to be attack comps, you need to make a decision. You either pull Seed or you pull Orphe. What I didn't talk about was that I also believe, and we talked about it today, you need to start vertically investing into your stuff. I know that sounds crazy, and at some point you could ask the question, well, why would I do that when I could just pull the newer units? If I have to vertically invest into my Seed or into my Evelyn or my Zhu Yuan or even Sanbi, why wouldn't I just use those pulls to grab Yidhari and invest into that, like the future Rupture meta or the current Rupture meta once that happens? You could do that, but now you're essentially rebuilding. Let's take a look at my Sanbi. My Sanbi has 36 effective substats, which she's in like double S territory, okay? Most people don't have 30 effective substats. My Sanbi is strong. She's very well built given what she has available to her. 56.2% crit rate, and I'm still working on this, right? I'm passively farming because I know I want Orphe. This is M0. Once Sambi gets her rerun and her rework, I'm pulling the E1 or M1. I might pull the M2. I'm vertically investing. Why? Because I really want to play this character. My skills, they're not done. 11, 9, 11, 11. He still has room to improve. My equipment still has room to improve. These are all the substats here. And again, I can still work on this stuff to make it even stronger. And then of course she has her W engine. We move on from that and we can talk about adding trigger. I can go for the M1 trigger. And this not only helps my Aftershock or Sambi teams, but it also helps anybody else that I'm using trigger with. Then we get into Orphe. Orphe at M0 is already a phenomenal upgrade or increase into my Sambi team in particular. But if I start going for Mindscapes, M1, M2, M3, I want M3 for the banner, not for the buffs, but you know, based reasons, right? I can still do that going for the Mindscapes. This further improves my output. The reason I'm saying that it's time that players start doing stuff like this for either their Orphe or for, where's she at? I just had her here. Am I blind? Seed, there we go. One or the other is because now these two characters in particular, Orphe and Seed, are helping other attack agents. Orphe is helping Aftershock, and I don't think they're going to get rid of Aftershock. I think they realized the mistake they made with only bringing in Sambi as an Aftershock DPS. Now, why they took away Seed's Aftershock right before she got live, like before we even got CE server, they stripped her. No more Aftershock. I don't have a reason for that. I also think that was stupid. I legit think that was a really stupid thing of them to do. Giving us another Aftershock DPS character, mainly on field, that could alternate, especially a character like Seed. I've been talking about Seed for a little bit, and a lot of people are going to be in here later on today when we talk with Soul. We're going to have a full-on discussion about Seed, but Seed is basically you can call her a hybrid DPS, okay? Seed functions as a main DPS, but she can also function as a sub DPS. What do I mean by that? I don't mean a sub DPS like Bernice. I swear I had that in my head. Vivian or Bernice, where they don't really come on the field at all, right? Like they do a thing, they tap a button or two, they get off the field, and then they have some ability of theirs that passively does damage for them while being off the field. I just consider that an off-field attacker. That's not what I mean by sub DPS. When I talk about sub DPSs, I'm specifically talking about the operations of the team. So let's talk about this in the case of like Miyabi and Yanagi, or Alice and Nagi and Miyabi, whoever, right? Miyabi's on the field, Miyabi does what she wants to do, and during the longer animations where I can switch out of this character, I swap into Yanagi. Whenever I get my Frostburn and my freezes off with Miyabi, I go into Yanagi. And then boom, I use my Yanagi, I use her EX skills, I use her ultimates, I take advantage and abuse disorders, polarity disorders, docks, and freeze as much as possible, right? This is what I'm referring to when I talk about a sub DPS. Yanagi has been that type of character. That's why when we go to Pridewind, if we look at Pridewind real quick, guys, Pridewind has Nagi in both the secondary, aka sub DPS category, and the main DPS category. I do expect once Pridewind kind of maybe looks at a little bit more information, or maybe more players start to put out their Seed gameplay and clears, I do expect Seed to eventually find herself in both of these categories. As of right now, that's not what the mass player base is doing, and that's okay. Going back to this though, right? That's what I'm referring to as far as like sub DPS stuff goes. We come back over to attack characters, we talk about Seed once more. Why am I talking about Seed and vertical investment? Why am I talking about Seed and like or Orphe and being able to significantly improve attack type characters? Because if you play Seed and Zhu, for instance, let's talk about the functionality behind this. Not so much the additional passes, because there's ways that you can activate that. Let's talk about the functionality between these two characters in particular. Zhu can operate on field one of two ways. One, by using a lot of quick assists. So with Astra, for instance, or using Trigger, she gets quick assist, she gets her bullets up, and she keeps a fresh stack of bullets all the time, meaning you can always come out, boom, 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 unload, get off the field. Because of a character like Trigger, who applies the stun damage multiplier debuff on enemies even outside of the stun, you're still able to do whatever damage it is that you want to do. You start adding in the defense shred with her W engine, and now you're looking at an on-field Zhu who does a little more damage. But let's talk about a Zhu that doesn't have access to that. Maybe your Zhu is M0, like mine, and you play her as a burst style DPS because she dishes out all her damage during the stun window. She has a great stun damage combo, and she still has room to use more moves, or in this case, to let Seed finish off her ultimate her enhanced basic attacks, her EX skills, whatever, right? These two function very well together. One of them would be a burst DPS, in this case being Yixuan, and I wouldn't even call it a sub DPS, right? That's why I see like there's different categories for stuff. And I understand that sometimes the different categories or different terms can complicate stuff for people, like terminology. Just take a chill pill, take a breather, open a book. Like you don't have to get overcomplicated, and you don't have to think about me or anyone else overcomplicating stuff just by labeling something in order to explain or help someone else understand. At the end of the day, this is just to help more people understand why something is being labeled or placed as it is. In this particular team, you can use Seed as a main DPS. Then you come out whenever Yixuan gets that burst window or that stun window. Boom, 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 boom. You unload all of her ether shells, pop her ultimates, pop her EX skills, get her chain attack going, and then you finish it again with Seed. In a team with Seed and Sandby, this kind of rotates. Now your Sandby stays on the field for as long as possible, pretty much until her resources are evaporated or exhausted. That means you don't have any energy for her EX skill. You don't have her ultimate. You can't apply silver marks on the enemy as easily. The enemy is more stationary than they are active, meaning that the enemy does not attack you as often, which means you can't get dodge counters as often to keep up your silver marks. In a situation like that, you alternate, you swap into Seed. Why? Because Seed doesn't need a silver mark to do what she wants to do. She doesn't need anything to do what she wants to do. She just needs another attacker on the team, and she's going to get the party started. On top of the fact, because of Seed's actual kit, Seed gains things from her Vanguard. When her Vanguard expels energy, when her Vanguard attacks and does things, Seed benefits. When Seed does things, her Vanguard benefits, right? All of that helps her in that way. And so again, you are alternating between these two. When one is up, the other is down. When one is down, the other is up. And you find a way to make that team work. So I feel like, again, vertical investment. And this just rotates out. Evelyn, Haru, Ellen, it all works the same way. Lurker, you also mentioned though, right? Because this is answering Lurker's question here. I'm worried about how the Rupture meta might increase defense on Deadly Assault bosses and make attacker agents worse off. Is it worth investing into the attack agents or save up for 2.3? This is a interesting question as well. And I guess like it counts as a follow-up. It really just comes down to personal preference. We have ways to shred our own defense, right? Attack agents have had that for a little bit now. If we're talking about support characters and we're shredding defense, it's always Nicole, and she's free. We always have access to Nicole. That's a 35% defense shred. We're chilling. Think about it this way, right? Even if they increase the defense of these new enemies, it wouldn't matter because Rupture is going to ignore 100% of it anyway. So in order for that to work, they would have to increase something else. They would have to increase the resistances, which attack agents, we have a lot of resistance shred coming into the game. Orphe has a lot of fire resistance shred. Lighter has fire resistance shred built into his kit and ice resistance shred built into his kit. And then when you start looking at Mindscapes, right, that's the vertical investment part, a lot of this stuff is going up. They would have to increase HP and a bunch of other fucked up stuff, or rather messed up stats, for this to work out for them. I don't think they're going to alter this in a way where like they're not going to make it so easy that Rupture agents are already like crushing the game or crushing what's happening. Why? Because Yixuan would be doing it and she's not doing it. They would increase the defense to shield Rupture. That's the point of a meta. Let's go off of that. Let's say they do it. Why? Well, if the reason is to shield Rupture agents, we would have seen it with Yixuan, right? Or rather, we would see it trying to happen with Yixuan. I think this would happen under the matchup side of things when we talk about matchups. I think there would be certain bosses that are just really good for Rupture. Same thing with Bringer and Miyabi, right? We talk about Bringer and Miyabi all the time. She smokes it. There are other characters that can beat it. We just have to figure it out, right? And we did. But I feel like that's what would happen. Yeah, they would more so try and force diversity between different enemies. We look at Defiler. Enemy resistance ice. They're trying to stop people from just running through the entire game with Miyabi, and even with Evelyn for that matter. People are still doing Fiend with Evelyn, but still, the two bosses currently anti-Miyabi. In one way, shape, or form, they're trying to make this anti-Miyabi so that you can use Yixuan, you can use not Yidhari, I guess, yeah, not Yidhari, Minato, because he's Rupture. He's like Hu Tao, right? Yeah, it's gonna be nasty if they make that work correctly. It's one of those things where like it's hard to dictate like what they're gonna do and how they're gonna do it and why they're gonna do it without them kind of like coming out and talking about what they're gonna do. I feel like this is kind of what would happen though, as far as like matchups and just different enemies, because we are at a point now we have a lot of different enemies with a lot of different, you know, like potential matchups or just like favored matchups. Yeah, we have Jester, weak to electric and physical. And these two in particular, these elements in particular, is something that we've been looking for a long time. We've been waiting for the physical stuff to come up. We've been waiting for electric, a little bit more shine. We have Bomber. Bomber is only weak to electric, but we see that we can just kind of body him with a lot of different things, right? Depending on the favored matchup. The Armored Dog, Haiti, the Shadow Monsters. I think Zenless is just getting to a point now, after a full year, we're diversifying the enemies. I do believe we're gonna get Miasma shield really hard in 2.3. Like, there's no doubt about that at all. But I think what's also gonna happen is we're also gonna get something, I don't really know what it is, but things that shred defense. If that is the case, we already have Nicole, we have Trigger's W engine, and we also have, if we're talking about attack agents, we have Orphe. Orphe coming into the game, shredding her own fire resistances. And then she also shreds 25% defense on top of that from her additional ability activating as well. So it's gonna be harder to like fully answer that question as far as like, should you even bother investing or continuing to invest into attack agents or go for Rupture? Here's what I would recommend, the same thing that I recommended when Anomaly came out. I think every player needs to get one of each. At a base level, you need one of each, and you pick the strongest option or your most fun option that you have. Every player now, especially with Minato coming into the game potentially for free, that means that you don't have to pull Yixuan. You just pull the supports that make Minato work. So in this case, like Lucia, right? You don't have to pull Yidhari if you don't really like her, and you can just work on Minato until we get a new Rupture agent that you happen to like. But right now, there are going to be 3 Rupture agents that we get that will be DPS characters. So you have 3 different DPS options to choose from, all of them sharing a support in one way, shape, or form. Build a Rupture team. Next, you build an attack team. We have 3 strong attackers right now, technically 4, but 2 of them operate off the same shit, whatever. Stanby going into 2. What are we in, 2.2? 2.1, whatever. Orphe, when we get Orphe, she will have a complete team. Stanby will have her complete premier team. You also have Evelyn, tried and true, tested, amazing unit. Absolutely can work with Evelyn, and like, you're fine. Now we have Seed. And so Seed works in a way where if you're playing with Seed, right, you have Seed, and let's say that you had a Nekomata sitting around the whole time, or you really liked Billy. Seed works in your favor to use these characters because she's going to help elevate them to the point where, from what we were seeing from the Japanese players here, and I think I know I showed it off yesterday, or the day before yesterday, something like that, Saturday, Billy and Nekomata are clearing deadly assaults with 35 to 45k on average. We're looking at them clear CU defense, 1.5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, depending on your builds. It's easier to play these attack type characters that were left in the dust because Seed helps them. Seed is basically Astra, but with damage for your team. And then you can still add Astra if you really wanted to, but Seed is basically an Astra, but damage for attack type characters specifically. Attack players needed a Seed. Like, if you're not gonna play Stanby and Orphe, specifically Stanby and Orphe, and you don't have an Evelyn premier team, Evelyn Lighter Astra already invested into, you pick up Seed. If you have any other attack agent, you pick up Seed. I wouldn't say she's a must pull, but like, it's close to it. She's very close to a must pull if you're playing any other attack agent that's not Stanby or Evelyn, because she just does wonders for you. Vertically investing into this makes it so that you don't have to worry about, let's just say that if they did shield Rupture a little too much, and they increase the defenses because now it's like, oh yeah, well, by the way, Rupture has like negative 1 million defense shred, so use Rupture now. Even if they did do that, vertical investment for something that you want to play, right? Lurker, at the end of the day, this would always come down to like what it is that you want to do. If you like Seed, if you like Soldier, if you like Neko, then you want to make them work. You do what you can to make these characters work for you, or rather make the teams as strong as possible. So if you're playing Seed, we get into her mindscapes, right? Vertical investment, her M2 is nasty. Look at this. We're talking about defense shredding. Her M2 gives her that defense shred. And a lot of the attack agents from Evelyn's point and beyond, between their M1 and M2, all have some kind of defense shred built into their kit. You add a character like Trigger with her engine, or even some of the attack characters have defense shred in their engine. Ultimate damage and basic attack damage ignores 20%. M2, W1, and I know that sounds expensive. It is. This is literally vertical investment. I wouldn't say get all this at once, get it over time, right? But point being is that even with M0, W1 on Seed, that's 20% defense ignore. If I added Trigger, which a lot of Seed players are all under the same, like, play Trigger with Seed, her best performance is with Trigger as of right now. Trigger with her W engine, another 25%. That's 45% defense shred from just having Trigger's W engine and Seed's W engine, both at M0. And then if you want to round this off, right? Now we put in Nicole. Again, this is purely from the perspective of like shredding defense. This is not, I would not recommend this team because now you're not activating Seed's passives, but I'm talking about numbers wise. Numbers wise, de-shredding defense, 40%. I knew it was 40. Okay, yeah, 40%. You're almost at 100% defense shred just from this combo. Even if you don't play Seed and you just had Nicole and Trigger with her engine, you're pushing 65% defense shred before anything else is applied. I also wouldn't be surprised if in the future, because they have to keep up with attack units at some point, I wouldn't be surprised if we got a defense shredding relic set or a disc drive set as well. Would not be surprised at all. There's also still the potential. Let's look at Lighter. I don't have his W engine, so I can't really show you what it does, but I'm pretty positive. Doesn't his W engine also give you a fire and damage bonus, a boost? His engine increases fire and ice crit damage. Thank you. Okay, so with Lighter's engine, fire and ice crit damage, boom. His base kit, reducing the ice res and fire res by 15%, boom. On top of any defense shredding that you might have, increases ice and fire damage up to 75%. M1 Lighter, 10% more fire and ice reduction, increases his own damage after that. What does M2 do? Increases the stun damage multiplied by 25%. The increase to ice and fire damage provided by Elation from his additional ability Fighting Spirit increases to 120% of the original. The way that you, and it kind of does suck that it's getting to this point for some people who aren't comfortable with this method, I guess. Attack agents just have to get vertical investment. They're a commitment at this point, and it's only because they don't cheat the game. Now, the newer characters, the newer DPS characters are coming out with little things in their kit to help them cheat something. It's not the entire game, right? They're not busting out Anomaly, but it's helping them cheat something. Aftershock is an extra instance of damage, at least from a DPS's perspective. We know that Sambi is getting a rework, and they might change it. They might make it so that Aftershock is just a ton of damage. They might make it faster. Who knows? Trigger is a character where it's like, and again, I said it before, damage is damage. Even if Trigger only provides 5 to 15% of the team's total damage output, that's still 5 to 15% of the team's total damage output. So if you just make your Trigger hit decent or hard, you're contributing. Mind you, these are perspectives. When we hear stuff like it's only 5 to 10 to 15%, this is from the perspective of like someone going for the kill. So like that 5 or 15% is very minuscule to us when we're like looking for a kill in Deadly Assault. But if you're just playing the team you're trying to keep up, that 5 to 10 to 15% is easily going to keep you in the meta. It's easily going to keep you in the meta. You don't have to worry about anything. Having a DPS Trigger alongside your DPS Seed or DPS Evelyn, DPS Sandby, DPS whatever, right? Having them do that extra bit of damage helps you not focus on everything else. Like you don't have to stress about it. If you're pumping 35k right now and then you build a DPS Trigger who also still gives you stun, 35k jumps up to like 47 to 45k because of the extra little bit of damage that she's adding into the mix. Getting an M1 Sambi might make it easier for you to operate, make it so that your silver marks happen more frequently. They do a little more damage. She increases her crit rate naturally so that you can focus on more crit damage, more attack. So now she deals more damage. I'd rock it like that. But at the end of the day, I think you need all of them, all three. You need one team per minimum. And then I would double up on whatever it is that you like. But you need to focus on one team at a time first. Like I said, unfortunately, just in comparison, attackers do require more investment. Every gacha game has this. It isn't specifically like an attacker, right? Or an attack agent, but every gacha game has a particular comp that requires more investment, but the investment is worth it for that player. Yeah, we're still crazy strong in terms of the agent power in Zenless when you build them properly. Exactly. Before I end this video off, because I know this video is a little longer, let me just kind of state this for the end of the video, for those that stuck around for here and then for those that are also in the stream. It gets to a point in the game in Zenless where we as players, we need to separate. Like it doesn't matter. Like, and this isn't a creator thing. Creators don't have to separate this, but it would be nice if we did. But players need to separate their expectations from reality. If I come on to YouTube right now and I look for Seed ZZZ Deadly Assault 65k, this is Harari's. There's another one in here, but let's just go with this one. M0 W1 Seed almost kills the Typhon. Hirari has talked to us already, and it's basically like, he said doesn't count. We're gonna count it right now for the sake of my, like, the point that I'm making is that an M0 W1 almost got the kill. He said RNG messed him up in the end. Like one little thing f***ed it over, didn't get the kill, but it was close. However, this was some of the sweatiest that he needed to play in order to get as high as he did. With Seed, this team is Seed, Sambi, and Nicole. This is unrealistic to the average player. I stress that because the average player is not getting the kill. The casual player is not getting the kill. The person that barely completes their builds is not getting a kill. The player that has +1, +1, +1, +1 on all of their disc is not getting the kill. It's not happening. This is the same thing as low cost zero cycles and star roll. Exactly. This is not what the average player is doing. When we see this type of gameplay, when we see this information and then we pass it around, when I talk about crazy good kills or like awesome combos, this player does that, whatever, that is not reality. It's not happening as easily as we see it in the video. These are from like top 1% to top 5% players, right? This is like red level player territory. Zaki mentioned it. Just like low cost zero cycles in Star Rail, unrealistic. In Zenless, when we see this, when we see sub 60-second clears in GU7, unrealistic. The average player is scoring around 37, 41. Well, I won't even say average player. Let's bring back that chart, the color scheme that I had, right? Red player is like a top 5%, top 1%, whatever. You have the orange player after that, the yellow players, and then green players, I think, or blue players. Yeah, green player was average. We're only gonna focus on the red, orange, and yellow. Anything yellow and above, that's where you're getting your 30Ks. Yellow and above is like, those are your 30K Deadly Assault clears. Those are your 1.5 minute Shiyu defense runs. Like, these are the people that have taken a little bit more time to understand the game. They're practicing, they're learning, and then they go off and do whatever it is. And then beneath that, we'll talk about like green level. This is like more like average player, right? It's not an insult, by the way, guys. I don't want anyone in the video taking it that way, but it's more like, you know, the average level player, right? What the average player is doing. This is your 20, or I'll even say like your 18, 17K to 30K, 29K range, right? Like they can clear, they're hitting that 20, but they haven't fully taken the dive. They haven't taken the deep dive to learn how to get past that threshold that they're reaching, okay? A lot of them just, they don't have access to it. They don't care. They don't want to put in the time. They don't want to put in the builds. Doesn't matter, right? Something is keeping them from doing it, but it's not the character. It's not that like, oh man, I didn't pull the latest character, that's why I can't clear past 25K. No, that's not what it is. It's that you just don't want to put in the time to get to that point. And for some people, that's okay. It's not a bad thing, right? If you don't want to put in the time and you acknowledge that, it's a-okay. But that is closer to reality. I said all of that to pretty much end off the remainder of this video because I wanted to talk about that last little tidbit about the reality versus expectations. We are in a great place in the meta right now. I think every single character except most recently, I think we're finally getting to a point where the original Cunning Hair's team cannot 20K everything in the game anymore. I think we're getting to that point. I don't think that means it's worrisome. I do not think that's a problem at all. We are 1.5 years deep into the game's lifespan. The free-to-play original Cunning Hair's team with no investment beyond like M6 and their own equipment should not be able to 20K things anymore. The game has gotten progressively more difficult. However, Soldier 11 can still 20K. Nekomata can still 20K. Even Anton is getting 20Ks. Your Soldier 11 needed you to pull a trigger in order to clear. Did you have lighter already? These are different things. And this goes into what I was talking about earlier. Like, you do have to invest into these teams. Like, Zenless isn't one of those games where like you can just, oh, I got Ellen. Okay, I'm gonna play Ellen Tokaku Arena and I should be able to clear everything, no problem. Like, no, you do have to invest into what you're doing. And that's how it should be. It's in-game. We could talk about it in-game for a whole another 40 minutes, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, that's what we're going on with, right? You have to do the investment. You have to do the work. Pretty much every character in the game, bar like those base 3 or 4-ish DPS characters, can still 20K in the game. Even Grace, very clunky to play, but Grace can still 20K in the game. I think Corrin might be on the same, I think Corrin might be on the same catalyst or caliber as Billy. Everyone, Piper definitely can do it. We already know that. All the limiteds can definitely do it. There's not a single limited DPS that can't do it. And there's not a single standard DPS that can't do it, but it does take work. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts and opinions on today's video. Lurker, hopefully I helped answer your question. And if not, continue to ask. I'll still answer it, or I'll keep answering more. I can't say my outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Like the video, comment, subscribe. Smell you later.